Welcome everyone! I am Kubrick and this is the finale of my castle building series in which we were building medieval barracks for the Black Falcon army. It's been about 2 months since I've started this series, but now finally I can present to you the finished MOC. And as you will see in just a second, it's one of the most detailed ones I've built so far. If you haven't seen the previous 2 episodes and you want to see how did the build came to life, then I encourage you to check out the playlist I've prepared in the description of this video, showing the overall plan and the process of building the base plate and stonework. But if you already got that covered, let's not waste any more time and check out this short cinematic showing the finished MOC, and then we'll jump on to the review of every single element of this build. And if you want to know what are the future plans for the channel, I will talk about those briefly at the end of the video because I still have some plans for this year. But now, without any further ado, I give to you the Medieval Barracks. So guys, what do you think? Pretty neat, huh? My goal for this build was to make a barracks building with an archery range, and the way it came out really exceeded my expectations. First of all, of course I've used a freeform base for the build, but doing this I didn't want to be limited by one technique, so the finish varies depending on the site we are looking at. So from the left side I made some bushes covering the archery range that I made using several layers of leaf pieces connected by flower stems and a bunch of vines. Because the base plate is few plates high, I was able to use quite a lot of plants, but still not so much that it would cover the archers. The middle part is just a small pathway leading to the building entry, so nothing special here. Just a bunch of wedge plates and tiles mixed with regular plates. And here we can see the general that came to supervise the whole training. One thing I've added here is a training dummy made out of some old armor pieces, which I think gives a nice touch to the front of the build. Now the right side I made using a regular snot technique that you can see a lot of builders use, and filled it with various plants from grass stems, leaves, to a couple of flowers that I used to break the color scheme a bit. I gotta say that this part of the foliage is my favorite, but in the same time it was the hardest to put together. Mostly because I've placed all the stems 2 plates below the ground level, and it was really tight in there to put each stem next to the other. And since we're here, we cannot talk about the tree that is growing here. I was aiming for something completely new that I haven't made yet, so I came up with this design with a trunk made of a minifigure suit and some barrels, while the crown of the tree is made entirely of olive green leaves and flower stems. The design came out very good in my opinion, while being a very simple one at the same time. The tree uses a couple of similar layers which connected together really give that dense effect that I was aiming for. Oh, and look, there is even a small bird nesting on the top of the crown. But enough of the foliage surrounding the MOC, because the most interesting part is the building itself. The story behind the building is that the Falcons adapted an old watchtower, adding a wall and a barracks building to make a remote training outpost for the archers and a few knights, which is now visited by the general and his closest companions for inspection. Those of you who saw the previous episode of this series already saw the tower and the part of the wall that is marking the archery range. Nothing much changed here, well, maybe besides the finished walkway on the wall. So the wall is covered from one side with wooden hoardings and accessible from the other side with a ladder I made with flex bars and droid arms. Oh, and below, the archery range is also finished nicely with the targets made by using round tiles with red bars in the middle and 2 rubber bands each to make the targets a bit bigger and more target-like. Moving on, the part on the right of the build is something totally new. And I know I've been going back and forth with the plan for this building, but I finally settled with the original plan that is making the bottom floor with stone. I gotta tell you, it wasn't easy because I not only used every single plate, tile and ingot piece I had in my collection, but I also had to disassemble a few sets I had on the shelves, but I think it was worth it. All was left was to make a simple yet effective doorway, add a couple of windows and a chimney going all the way up the building. The top floor on the other hand is made as envisioned from the very beginning, that is made as a half-timbered wall that I've had in my head for a very long time. The whole thing is made in a very complex snot technique with the wooden elements being moved a half a stud to the front. I was afraid that this design would be fragile, but in the end it came out very solid with all the parts being firmly connected to each other and to the tower. I can already hear some purists being triggered by the way I did the slanted beams, because I used flex bars that I cut in a specific angle for each part of the wall. And believe it or not, they are staying here very firmly just by being under tension from the walls. The inner walls I made using not only white but also tan and dark tan plates to simulate molded areas as an old medieval house would look like, and in the middle I placed a couple of wooden windows. The same kind of technique I used on the side, but here I had to modify the walls a bit so they would play well with both the chimney and the slanted roof. And speaking of the roof, sometimes the simplest design is the most effective, so I used almost 500 dark blue cheese slopes. And that is actually the reason I had to delay the premiere of this episode, because I was waiting for the slopes a bit longer than expected. At first I was a little stressed out that I was ordering used parts, but this was the only shop in Poland that had such a quantity. But now when I look at the roof, the mixed level of wear is giving an additional bit of detail, with some being lighter than the others. Not only the roof tiles look very realistic, but also it has that medieval feel to it. Sticking out of the roof is of course a chimney that I made hollow on the inside and stick a bunch of ice cream pieces on the top to simulate smoke. It's been a while since I used this technique, but here it works just perfectly. Looking to the left from the roof, you can see that the top of the tower is finished smoothly as well, with a balcony on which the guard is having a chat with one of the general's right hands. But the floor here was just a nightmare to put together. I wanted some kind of a stone mosaic using headlight bricks and cheese slopes placed on their sides, but I think the finished floor was worth the effort. I also had to make a covering of the stairs leading to the top, and I finished it with a small wooden roof just in case it would be raining. The tower itself is surrounded by crenellations that are covering most of the figures, just so the guards won't be open to enemy arrows, but still giving them openings so they can defend the outpost from above, either by shooting arrows or throwing rocks that are stored in this crate right here. Okay, now if you've been following my previous builds, you know that I'm a sucker for interiors, so this time I went full out on it and made every part of the build accessible. So starting with the tower that was already mostly done in the last episode, we have a small armory on the bottom floor and a staircase leading all the way up. Here you can see some custom lights being used, both on the wall and hanging from the ceiling, that were provided to me by Light Tailing. These were very useful in this build, and if you're looking for some light kits for your own builds, you can get yours by following the link in the description of this video. Not only you will get a discount by using the provided code, but also you will help out the channel by doing so. Anyway, the tower is accessible only from the building, so there is an open doorway leading from the Great Hall, and going up you can access the sleeping quarters through the door. And since we're here, let's first talk about the upper floor. The door is the same design I made on the outside, only two-sided, because here I had a thicker wall to put them in. And on the inside of the room there are a few beds for the soldiers, each with a bag next to it, an opening in the chimney to let some heat in the room, and a few decorations like a Viking helmet, a picture above a fireplace, and a working lantern on the wall. The bottom floor is where the soldiers meet and dine while they're not training for the battle. So in the middle we have a big dining table with 6 chairs and again a lantern on the wall. Quite a simple design for the chairs, but for the table I had to spare a fair share of time to come up with the way it's connected, even though it might look pretty straightforward. And of course we have a big fireplace at the end of the hall, also with working lights, this time using bigger LED panels, and a bunch of fire pieces which give a really warm feel to the whole interior. The thing I really like about this interior is the wooden floor, for which I used dark orange masonry bricks placed sideways, and a blue rug in the middle inspired by the ones made for the Ideas Friends TV show set. And that, my friends, covers both the interior and exterior of the build. Of course, there are a few minor details that I didn't talk about, but those you can see by yourself in the cinematic part of the video. Let me know how do you like the finished MOC, guys. The comment section is now open to all your feedback, both good and bad, so don't hesitate to write down what you think about the build. Now, before we finish this video, there are some important announcements for the future of this channel. First of all, and the most exciting one, is that there is an exhibition coming to Poznań in December, where I want to display this build as well as the gold mine hideout I did before, and my Spurious rover I did for February. So if all goes well, and you will be in the area in that time, drop by to see my builds live and chat a bit. And that brings us to the second announcement, because this will not be the only builds I will take with me. The next build I will be making is going to be a part of a collaborative build with my lagmates from Zbudujmy To, and guess what, I am planning to make it in another building series on this channel. I don't want to talk too much details just yet, but I'm very curious of how will the build go. It will be something different for me, not only because in the end the build will be connected to what other participants will make, but also the theme is something I've never built before. If you saw a few of my previous hauls, you could see some hints towards what the theme will be, but for now let's just keep it in the dark for a bit more, at least to the first episode of the series. It should start sometime next month, because we are still waiting for the parts from LEGO Project support, but to be sure you won't miss it, click that red subscribe button and turn on the notification bell just in case. And who knows, maybe I'll make some kind of a small vignette in the meantime, just to keep you guys entertained a bit more. But for now, let's wrap it up, because I need to start planning on the layout of my next build. So be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed all the jibber jabber you just heard, and I will see you again in the next video. And in the meantime, stay safe and keep it brickin'.